We saw two big coaching moves last week. One of them very expected, with Bruce Arena officially being hired to run the show in San Jose. One of them relatively out of left field, as Jim Curtin was sacked in Philadelphia, a Union team that was eliminated by Pachuca 6-0 in CONCACAF Champions Cup this year. They made it to the semifinals of Leagues Cup, where they got beat at home by Colorado, and then they did not make the postseason after getting 1 point from their last four games. John, was this the right decision for Philadelphia?
No, this was not the right decision for Philadelphia. I think Jim Curtin was thrown into a really difficult situation this year where, to me, his roster wasn't good enough to win some of the things that Philadelphia's won in the past, to compete to lift the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Jim Curtin, to me, this year was being asked to both apparently lift trophies or win these tournaments or do better than they did and develop players. We know that's not really feasible in today's MLS. We saw certain teams, FC Dallas comes to mind, sort of balance in the past, having some success, lifting a few trophies and also selling players. But in today's MLS, I think it's nearly impossible. This was, to me, a roster that needed to be blown up, that they were refusing to blow up, that everyone could kind of see the signs of going into this season that this might not work together. And you're trying to bring in uh, young players who have talent, who we think are going to be very good in the future, but maybe are not good right now, and asking a coach to get results. I think, looking at the reporting from Jeff Carlisle and ESPN had a nice article, Tannenwald, of course, our friend in Philly, like it seems like there's some power struggle stuff here, some internal back and forth. And to me, that's why Jim Curtin is probably looking for his next job. But if I'm one of the MLS teams, Armand, that it has a vacancy right now, I'm getting Jim Curtin line one if I still have a phone number with lines.
We talk about their spending and how Philly was needed to rebuild their roster. Something I was looking into was their net, like their transfer spend, their expenditures. Guys, since they made MLS Cup, they've spent in MLS the 27th most transfer fees in the league, which is really, really bad. There's only 29 teams in MLS at the moment. Since Jim Curtin has started coaching, which I went back 10 years since 2014, they've been 28th. How can someone be asked to perform consistently when they're not receiving the needs that they need? They need to improve a team. I mean,
Well, and they sold Jose
evolve.
Martinez. Like, what you sold your defensive
You sold
Carranza. What do you expect to do?
Yeah, it's hard to improve on something like that. And
and culturally, it's culturally too. Like, there's no one more Philly than Jim Curtin. Like, that guy is Philadelphia. He roots for the teams unironically, like the Eagles, the Flyers, whatever. He's from that area. I think, like, yeah, maybe you say, hey, it's time we have to turn the page. But I like you're saying, I don't think you got a fair shake necessarily on the way out if you're just going to go on results.
Well, John, you mentioned Dallas, by the way, and I wrote down how similar in my notes, how similar this is to what we saw in Dallas with Oscar Pereja in almost every way,
100%.
shape, and form. So first off, in 2021, Philadelphia finishes in second place. Good team. They're on the way up. 2022, they finished tied for the top of the table. They lost out on Supporter Shield on goal difference to LAFC. They lost to LAFC in MLS Cup, but 1A and 1B, by far the best teams in the league. 2023, they start to lose steam. Amazing to start semifinals of CONCACAF Champions Cup. Then they start going down really bad. Got one win in their last 8 games, limped into the playoffs, eliminated. This year, they had a period where they won 1 out of 17 games. They needed 2 points from their last 4 games to make the playoffs. They were beating Cincinnati on decision day and lost at home. I will say, and by the way, what happened when Dallas got rid of Oscar Pereja? Now they're on there looking for their 4th coach in the last, 8 years? They've been, 1 or 2 good seasons, but they have not been nearly as good. The youth development not doing as well, blah, 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 down the line. Is Philadelphia going to regret this? I understand why it happened, because you can look at the results and say things are ticking down. But as you said at the start, John, is this anything he could control, or is this the ownership group, him creating unrealistic expectations for himself?
Sugarman is saying the same things that the Hunts said when they let Oscar Pereja go in Dallas. I mean, Oscar, I think, also wanted a different challenge. I don't know that Jim Curtin would feel the same way.
But they wouldn't support him.
Place.
They didn't support him financially in the same way. And then he goes somewhere else and signs the exact players in Orlando that he was wanting in Dallas.
The other interesting thing to underline here is there are rumors from Mexico that the Leagues Cup format is going to switch in 2025. The Union were great in both Leagues Cups, but then you mentioning, hey, they kind of ran out of steam toward the end of both of those past 2 seasons where they had these great League Cup runs, getting third place in 2023, getting all the way to the
semifinals this year. Yep.
Would they have gone to the third place game and lost?
They
Is
lost to
happened?
Colorado at home in the third place game on PKs, I believe.
And they won.
You'll be stunned that I was doing something else on third. I was covering the final, so not to big time, but I didn't watch much of the third place game. No, I just think that tournament can be, while other teams are resting because they lost, having to play those games sometimes I think can be difficult for teams as well. So that's just another interesting factor. But overall, I think the big picture narrative is that ownership apparently feels like results should have been better, but where was the cash to support that? If you're going to invest that in youth development, that's fine. Understand that those teams aren't always going to win.
And look, when you look at Philadelphia, the model that they're presenting, they're trying to do the things that Dallas used to do. As you said, Daniel, I mean, look at the MLS Next Pro final that was this past weekend, which North Texas SC beat Philadelphia Union 3-2. If you look at the rosters, if you look at the difference, North Texas average starting lineup was around 22 years old. The Unions was around 19. There's a 3-year gap. They're definitely putting players in that, are pretty good in those moments. And they're also, developing at the youth level. They're doing the same things that you saw Dallas do. I mean, to be honest, when I was at Dallas, we'd look at Philly and be like, okay, like they're doing things in an interesting, in a good way. Like maybe there's some things that we could replicate in that capacity. But at the same time, it's like, you can't just keep going through that, you can't not spend. And you saw Dallas recently spend when you bring Alan Velasco, you bring Peter Musa, you bring in these big guys to complement these players.
And that's why they're winning MLS. No. Also no.
But you need a coach. I don't think the Union made the proper decision here. Again, I can understand it from a results-based business, but in terms of will they regret this, I think they will. And if I was, again, like you said, John, if I was a team like St. Louis, if I was Dallas,
he will have a job very soon.
Yeah,
he
you
will
should
not
be looking.
Be
And if he wants to go to Europe, go to Europe. Try something new. This is a good opportunity for Jim Curtin to kind of get out of that, and maybe it advances his career in a better direction than what it was going.